This is a story about a mother's love and the miracle of kindness. Her name was Laura, and she lived in Chicago with her two young daughters, Emily and Lucy. At 33 years old, Laura had already faced more hardship than most people endure in a lifetime. She had lost her mother when she was just a child, growing up without the warmth of a mother's embrace. Later, she married, hoping to build the family she never had. But her husband abandoned them when their youngest daughter was still a baby. He simply walked out one morning and never returned, leaving Laura to raise two children completely alone. With no family to turn to and no college education, Laura struggled to find work that would support her girls. Eventually, she became a taxi driver, renting a car each month before she could even think about earning money for food and rent. She drove through exhausting days and sleepless nights, her body aching and her heart heavy with worry. Some passengers were kind, others rude, but Laura never stopped. She couldn't afford to. Every night after her daughters fell asleep, she would sit beside them, gently touching their hair and whispering promises that she would never give up on them. They lived in a cramped apartment where the walls seemed to close in on them, but it was home. Each month brought the same anxiety about paying rent, the same fear about what tomorrow might bring. Yet Laura kept driving, kept fighting, because her daughters needed her. They were her reason for breathing, her reason for waking up each morning. Without them, she often thought her life would have no meaning at all. One winter evening changed everything. Laura was driving her daughters home through a cold rain. The streets were dark and slippery, and the car's heater had stopped working. Little Lucy shivered in the back seat, her small voice breaking the silence. "Mom, I'm cold." Laura's hands trembled on the steering wheel as she tried to comfort her daughter, promising they would be home soon. Then, without warning, bright headlights flooded the car. A deafening crash followed, and pain exploded through Laura's body before everything went dark. When she woke, she found herself staring at a white hospital ceiling. The smell of medicine filled her nose, and the sound of machines beeped steadily nearby. Panic seized her heart. "My daughters," she tried to speak, her voice barely a whisper. "Where are my daughters?" A gentle nurse took her hand and assured her that the girls were safe. Moments later, Emily and Lucy rushed through the door and fell into their mother's arms, all three of them crying together. The doctor's news was devastating. Laura had broken her leg badly and would need surgery. She wouldn't be able to work for months. Worse still, the rented taxi had been destroyed in the crash, and the owner demanded $10,000 in compensation. Laura had nothing. She lay in that hospital bed and wept, wondering how she would feed her children, how she would keep a roof over their heads. Then something unexpected happened. Someone who had heard about the accident shared Laura's story on social media. Strangers from across the city and beyond began reading about this single mother who had sacrificed everything for her daughters. Small donations started arriving, along with messages of support and encouragement. One evening, Laura's phone rang. A calm voice spoke on the other end. "I heard your story," the man said. "I want to help you." When Laura asked who he was, he simply replied that she would know soon enough. A few days later, several people arrived at the hospital carrying flowers and warm winter jackets for Emily and Lucy. Among them was a young man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He sat down beside Laura's bed and told her that he knew her story and wanted to help. Laura couldn't understand why a stranger would care so much. "Because I can," he answered simply. Within days, all of Laura's hospital bills had been paid in full. She cried tears of relief, overwhelmed by such unexpected generosity. But the kindness didn't stop there. When Laura was strong enough to leave the hospital, the young man and his team took her and her daughters to see something incredible. They stopped in front of a beautiful house with large windows and warm, welcoming rooms. "This is your new home," they told her. Laura's legs gave way beneath her, and she sank to her knees, unable to believe what she was hearing. Her daughters wrapped their arms around her as all three cried together. "Is this real?" Laura whispered. "Yes," they answered. "It's real." Later, the young man asked Laura what her biggest dream was. Through her tears, she confessed that she had always wanted to open a small grocery store, something stable that would let her provide for her daughters without the endless exhaustion of driving all night. "Then we'll make it happen," he said with a smile. Several months later, Laura stood inside her very own shop. The shelves were stocked with fresh food, and customers greeted her with warm smiles. She was no longer just a tired taxi driver struggling to survive. She was a business owner, a woman who had found her strength again. One evening, Laura invited the young man to dinner to thank him properly. Emily arranged flowers on the table, while Lucy drew a picture that said "thank you" in bright colors. When he arrived, the girls ran to hug him, and Laura approached with tears streaming down her face. She started to kneel in gratitude, but he gently stopped her. "You owe me nothing," he said softly. "Just live happily." That night, Laura and her daughters said a prayer for the man who had changed their lives forever. Now, Laura wakes each morning in a home filled with warmth and love. She kisses her daughters, opens her store, and greets each new day with hope. Her story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, love and determination can carry us through. It shows us that kindness still exists in this world, and that sometimes one compassionate person can transform everything. Laura learned what it means to be truly resilient, to keep standing when life knocks you down. And she discovered that miracles can happen when we least expect them, often arriving in the form of a stranger with a kind heart.